This is where the kids' swings are. This is where they always played.
What if I told you that right now, somewhere in Nova Scotia, 2 young children have vanished and the people searching hardest might not be who you think they are? What if the answers everyone's looking for have been hiding in plain sight, buried in the small details that nobody wanted to examine too closely? This is not just another missing children case. This is a story where nothing adds up, where a mother abandons her search to flee her own province, where a stepfather speaks about his missing stepchildren in the past tense before anyone had even found them. This is the disappearance of Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack. And before you think you know what happened, you need to hear every unsettling detail. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover cases like this with deep investigation and respect for the truth, and you're going to want to follow every layer of this mystery as it unfolds. Subscribe now because this story gets darker with every revelation. On May 2, 2025, in the quiet, remote community of Landone Station in northeastern Nova Scotia, 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack simply vanished. They disappeared from their rural home, and in the days that followed, details emerged that would trouble investigators, shock the community, and raise questions that still linger unanswered today. But here's what you need to understand from the very beginning. This case is not about what the RCMP officially concluded. This case is about what doesn't fit, what feels wrong, and what desperate parents said when they thought no one was really listening. The search began immediately. Helicopters filled the sky above Pictou County. Dogs were brought in to track any scent. Drones with infrared technology swept across the dense woods. By the 5th day, the operation had grown massive, coordinated, and intensive. The authorities were searching for 2 children who supposedly had simply wandered into the woods. But something about this narrative began to feel incomplete. Let's start with what the stepfather, Andrew Martel, told the public on that fateful morning when everything changed. In an interview that quickly spread across social media, Martel sat down and described what Lilly and Jack were wearing, what they had taken with them, and what the search had uncovered so far. He spoke with what seemed like specific knowledge, painting a precise picture of the children's appearance. He knew exactly what color boots Jack was wearing. He knew the dinosaurs were on those blue boots. He knew that Lily's backpack was white with strawberries on it, that it was probably brown now from being in the woods. He described how only 2 boot tracks had been found outside the house, right beside the home, probably 10 feet away from the backyard. He mentioned the helicopters, the dogs, the 8 drones with infrared technology going out the night before. He spoke about how much Jack loved bugs and dinosaurs, about how Lilly loved girly things but also loved doing everything with her brother. He painted them as best friends, not just siblings. But something about the way he said these things bothered people online who were watching closely. Something about the language. Something about the tense. He said, Lilly had her backpack. Not Lilly has her backpack. He said, Jack loved bugs. Not Jack loves bugs. He spoke of these children as if they were already gone. As if the outcome had already been decided. As if somewhere in his mind he already knew their fate. Could this be innocent? Could a parent in crisis simply fall into past tense as a way of coping? Possibly. But when you combine it with everything else, when you stack detail upon detail, the picture becomes harder to ignore. People on social media began pointing out that he mentioned specific details about Jack's boots even though, according to the parents' own account, they didn't see the children that morning. They said they only heard them playing in the next room. They said they drifted back to sleep. They said when they woke up and realized it was quiet, they went looking and couldn't find them anywhere. So how did Martel know exactly what boots Jack was wearing if he never saw him that morning? How did he know with such precision about the dinosaurs, the exact shade of blue, the details that a parent would know from seeing their child, not from hearing them? And then there was the backpack. He described it with such certainty, white with strawberries, probably brown now from the woods. He made an observation that struck observers as oddly specific, even oddly foreshadowing. He seemed to be suggesting how Lilly might be found. Why would a parent searching for his missing stepdaughter describe her belongings with the tone of someone already accepting a tragic outcome? The CBC obtained a statement from Martel where he explained that the children were home from Salt Springs Elementary School on Friday, May 2nd, because Lilly had a cough. A simple illness, a reason to stay home. Parents do this all the time. Children get sick, they miss school, they recover at home. But when the school was contacted for information, a spokesperson for the Sinton Central Regional Center for Education revealed something that contradicted the casual nature of this explanation. The 2 children hadn't just been home on Friday because of illness. They had been absent from school the entire week preceding their disappearance. April 28th through May 2nd. An entire week. Think about that for a moment. An entire week where, according to all available accounts, the only people who saw these two young children were their parents and stepfather. An entire week where nobody from the school system, nobody from extended family, nobody from outside the immediate household can verify that these children were alive, that they were well, that they were present in that home. Martel knew Lilly had a cough. But if he didn't see her that morning on May 2nd, how did he know she was sick? How do you know your daughter has a cough without having seen her? Without having heard her cough? Without having been in the same space as her? These small details, these tiny inconsistencies, they compound. They build. They create shadows of doubt that grow longer and darker as you examine them. The mother, Malia Brooks Murray, gave her own account to the media. She explained that she had heard the children playing in the next room beside her and her partner Daniel. She said she was drifting in and out of sleep, that she heard them but didn't see them. She insisted that her children never wandered outside alone, that they were always watched, always supervised, always safe inside their home. But then she said they simply slipped out through a sliding glass door. A door so silent, so quiet, that neither parent could hear it open. A door that didn't make a sound as two small children ages 6 and 4, managed to get out, put on their boots, grab a backpack and venture into the dense Nova Scotia woods without either adult noticing anything was wrong until it was too late. Is that possible? Of course children can be quick. Of course they can sneak out. But this narrative was presented as if it were the obvious explanation, the simple answer to a complex question. A 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, possibly with autism as mentioned later, managed to overcome the supervision of 2 adults and disappear into the wilderness without a sound. And somehow 1 boot print was found. Just 2 boot tracks. Nothing else. By the 5th day of the search, with helicopters overhead and dogs combing the terrain, no backpack had been found. No boots. Nothing but a ghostly footprint and the growing questions about what actually happened in that home on May 2, 2025. The mother, Brooks Murray, appeared in an interview where she pleaded for an Amber Alert. She spoke about how sweet her children were, how they would talk to anyone, how they were so trusting, so open. She stressed this detail repeatedly. They will talk to anyone in a store. They will speak to strangers. They are extremely sweet, extremely open children. Was she expressing the fear that her children had been abducted by someone they trusted? Or was she establishing a narrative, building a foundation for a particular version of events? Some who watched the interview noticed the same thing about Martel's statements. Both parents seemed to be building a case for the abduction theory, pointing out how their children were so trusting and so open to talking to anyone. People online began noticing something else. In both parents' interviews, there appeared to be a strange absence of emotion. No tears. No visible hysteria. Certainly, everyone grieves differently. Certainly, some people shut down in crisis. But a mother whose 2 children had just vanished into the woods in the first hours of search and rescue operations, wouldn't you expect some visible display of anguish? Some breaking point in the interview? Brooks Murray said, "I want my babies home." She said these words, but something about the way she said them, something about the overall tone of her interview, struck observers as disconnected, as if she were reciting words rather than expressing the deepest pain a parent could feel. The RCMP did not issue an Amber Alert. They did not treat this as an abduction case. They stood by their conclusion that Lilly and Jack had simply wandered off into the dense Pictou County woods. No evidence of foul play, they said. No indication of abduction. Just 2 young children who managed to slip away from their supervision and get lost in the wilderness. But that statement, no evidence of foul play, took on a strange and ominous tone when you consider everything else. Could it be read differently? Could it mean not that foul play hadn't occurred, but that no evidence of foul play existed because whoever might be responsible had been careful? Because whoever was in that home knew how to avoid leaving evidence? These are the questions that began circulating online. These are the details that people couldn't stop examining, dissecting, analyzing. Because something felt fundamentally wrong with the official narrative. The search continued. The days stretched on. And then something happened that would deepen the mystery even further. On May 3rd, just 1 day after the children's disappearance, Brooks Murray made an extraordinary decision. While the search was still in its early stages, while helicopters were still overhead, while dogs were still tracking through the woods, the mother of the 2 missing children fled Pictou County. She announced that she needed to be with family. She left the search area. She left her partner, Andrew Martel, behind. And according to reporting from Canadian press, she blocked him on social media. Martel was left baffled by this decision. He couldn't understand why the mother of his missing stepchildren would abandon the search to leave the province. He muttered to reporters, "I don't know why she left. Think about this. Think about the implications. A mother abandons the active search for her two missing children. She flees the province. She blocks the man she lived with, the man raising these children alongside her, on social media. What does this signal? What does this behavior suggest? If your children had just gone missing in the woods, if you believed they had simply wandered off into the wilderness, wouldn't you stay? Wouldn't you coordinate with search and rescue? Wouldn't you be there every moment, searching, hoping, praying? Why would you leave? The only logical explanations are terrifying. Either Brooks Murray knew something about what happened to her children, or she was running from something herself, or her relationship with Martel had fractured so completely in that moment that she couldn't bear to be near him. And Martel, left behind, suddenly became a person of interest in the public's eye. The stepfather. The man who knew specific details about what the children were wearing. The man who spoke of them in past tense. The man left behind when the mother fled. The questions multiplied. The inconsistencies piled up. The official story began to feel increasingly fragile, increasingly difficult to maintain. But here's where we have to pause and ask ourselves something crucial. What really happened in that home in the quiet, wooded community of Landone Station? What is the truth buried beneath these layers of strange behavior, suspicious details, and impossible timelines? As we move forward, the mystery only deepens. The evidence becomes more troubling. And the fate of Lilly and Jack Sullivan remains one of the most haunting unanswered questions in recent Canadian true crime history. Do you have a theory? Do you believe the official story? Or do you think something else happened in that home? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Tell us what you think. And if this story has gripped you the way it's gripped thousands of people online, if you're feeling that sense of unease, that sense that something doesn't add up, then hit that like button and stay subscribed. We're not done uncovering the truth yet. What breaks a family apart so quickly that a mother would flee, that a stepfather would be left confused and alone, that two children would vanish in the span of a single morning? The answer might be darker than anyone wants to admit. We need to go back and examine every detail of that week before May 2nd. We need to understand what was happening in that household behind closed doors, away from the eyes of teachers, neighbors, and family friends. The children had been absent from school all week. April 28th through May 2nd. 5 days. An entire school week where nobody outside the immediate family had any contact with Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Think about your own children or children you know. When they're sick, how long does it actually last? A day or two, maybe 3. But an entire week? Lilly supposedly had a cough. Jack was also listed as absent. But were they really sick? Or was there another reason they stayed home that week? The school couldn't provide additional context. The parents gave no detailed explanation. We only have Martel's statement that Lilly had a cough. That's it. That's all we know about why two young children, including one who was only 4 years old, spent an entire week in that home while the rest of the community went about its daily life, unaware. Was anyone checking on them? Did a doctor examine them? Was there any outside verification of their illness? These questions remain unanswered. Then on Friday morning, May 2nd, the narrative shifts. Brooks Murray claims she woke up hearing the children playing in the next room. She says she was drifting in and out of sleep. She heard them, but she didn't see them. She heard them, but she didn't get up to check on them. She heard them, but she drifted back to sleep. How long were they playing? How long was she half asleep while two young children were supposedly in the next room? Minutes? Hours? Was she really drifting in and out of sleep, or was she simply not paying attention to where her children were? Then came the moment when the quiet registered. When the absence of sound became louder than any noise. Brooks Murray describes waking up and asking her partner Daniel, "Do you hear the kids?" He said no. And immediately she knew something was wrong. She got up. She looked outside. She yelled for them. She called 911. The alarm had been raised. The search had begun. But ask yourself this. How much time had actually passed between when she last heard the children and when she realized they were gone? 30 minutes? An hour? 2 hours? In that window of time, in that gap between the last sound and the first moment of panic, what happened? The parents' explanation was straightforward. The children had slipped out through the sliding glass door. The door that was so silent, so quiet, that neither adult could hear it open. The door that allowed a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old to escape without anyone noticing. Brooks Murray emphasizes this point in her interview. She says, "They happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens." She says it as if it's a known fact, a established truth about this door. We've confirmed this door is silent. We've tested it. We know it doesn't make a sound. But is that actually verifiable? Or is it simply an explanation offered for why two small children managed to leave the home without the adults knowing? She continues her account, and they were outside playing but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew the room like it was quiet and we get up and I tell him, my partner Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no. And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. This account, taken at face value, tells a story of attentive parents who realized quickly that something was wrong. It tells a story of two children who simply slipped out, got lost in the woods, and triggered an immediate search and rescue response. But what if we don't take it at face value? What if we examine the gaps in this narrative? Who actually saw the children leave? Nobody. Nobody witnessed them going out the door. Nobody saw them putting on their boots. Nobody saw them taking the backpack. This is all reconstruction, all assumption based on what the parents told authorities. What physical evidence supports this narrative? 2 boot tracks. Just 2. Outside the house, probably 10 feet from the backyard. And nothing else. No other evidence. No backpack. No additional footprints. No trail leading into the woods. Just 2 small boot prints found near the house. If 2 children actually ventured into the dense Nova Scotia woods, wouldn't there be more evidence of their passage? Wouldn't there be broken branches, disturbed vegetation, more consistent footprints? How does a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old walk through dense forest without leaving a more obvious trail? The search and rescue teams brought in dogs. They brought in drones with infrared technology. They had helicopters overhead. By the 5th day the operation was massive and intensive. And they found what? Nothing. No bodies. No clothing. No backpack. No evidence that these children ever made it into those woods at all. Meanwhile, the timeline becomes more troubling the more closely you examine it. Martel knew about Lily's cough. Martel knew what boots Jack was wearing. Martel knew the colors and the specific details of their clothing. He described these things with certainty, with specificity, with the knowledge that comes from personal observation. Yet according to the parents' account, Martel didn't see the children that morning. He wasn't the one who heard them playing in the next room. That was Brooks Murray. He wasn't the one who woke up and realized they were gone. That was Brooks Murray and Daniel. But somehow Martel knew exactly what they were wearing. In the interview, when he's asked about the boots, he doesn't hesitate. He doesn't say, I think Jack was wearing blue boots but I'm not entirely sure. He says with absolute certainty, blue boots for Jack with dinosaurs on them. How does a stepfather know this level of detail about what his stepchildren wore on a specific morning if he didn't see them? Some might argue that the boots were missing from the front door. Martel could have noticed they were gone and made an assumption. But that assumes he was looking for the boots specifically, that he was trying to piece together what the children were wearing based on what was missing from the home. That assumes a level of investigation and analysis that goes beyond simply being a parent noticing their children are gone. Or it assumes something darker, that Martel knew exactly what the children were wearing because he was present when they put those boots on. Because he was part of what happened that morning, not a bystander to some terrible accident or abduction. The mother's decision to flee becomes even more troubling when you consider her relationship with Martel. They lived together. They were raising these children together. They were partners in this household. And yet, just one day after the children's disappearance, she blocked him on social media and left the province. What would cause a mother to make this decision? What kind of event, what kind of revelation, what kind of crisis would fracture a partnership so completely that one person would flee? The RCMP conducted a detailed search. They concluded that the children had wandered off into the woods. They urged residents to check their properties, their sheds, their garages, places where children might hide or accidentally get trapped. But the RCMP also said there was no evidence of foul play. And as the days turned into weeks, as the search continued without finding anything, the public began to ask uncomfortable questions. Where were Lilly and Jack Sullivan? Online, people began to construct different narratives. Some believed the official story, that the children had simply wandered into the woods and gotten lost. But others couldn't shake the feeling that something else had happened. Others couldn't ignore the timeline, the inconsistencies, the suspicious details. The silence from the family became deafening. Brooks Murray had fled the province and was no longer giving interviews. Martel remained behind, but information about him dried up. The search continued, but the media coverage shifted. The story moved from the headlines into the background of ongoing investigations. But for those who were paying close attention, for those who were examining every detail and every statement, the questions refused to go away. Why would a mother leave her children's search? Why would a stepfather speak in past tense about children who hadn't been found? Why was there a week when nobody outside the family saw these children? Why were there only 2 boot prints when a thorough search of the property should have revealed more evidence? Why would the parents be so insistent on the abduction theory when authorities found no evidence to support it? The fracturing of this family, the sudden departure of the mother, the blocking on social media, the confusion and abandonment that followed, these aren't the actions of people grieving the accidental loss of their children to the wilderness. These are the actions of people running from something. These are the actions of people whose relationship was shattered by something, some event, some knowledge that broke them apart so completely that they couldn't bear to be in the same space anymore. And somewhere in that fracturing, in that breakdown of the family unit, lies the truth about what happened to Lilly and Jack. We may never know. The authorities have their conclusion. The case remains officially closed, with the theory that the children wandered into the woods and became lost. But the evidence they cite, the timeline they present, the narrative they maintain, it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. It doesn't answer the difficult questions. It doesn't explain the behavior of the people who were there that day. What we're left with is a mystery. A haunting mystery about 2 young children who disappeared, about a family that fractured in an instant, about a search that found nothing, and about a mother who abandoned everything to flee. What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe the official story? Or are you troubled by these details, these inconsistencies, these impossible timelines? Comment now. Tell us what you think happened. Tell us where you're watching from. Your voice matters in this case. Your attention matters. And if you're still watching, if this mystery has gripped you the way it's gripped so many others, then hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Because we're not stopping here. We're going to dig deeper into the questions that remain unanswered, the details that don't add up, and the truth that may be hidden in plain sight. 2 children vanish. 2 boot prints remain. Everything else, the backpack, the answers, the truth, is gone. And what we're left with is not a mystery in the traditional sense. What we're left with is something far more unsettling, the uncomfortable possibility that we know more than we're willing to admit. Let's compile everything we know. Let's lay it all out, piece by piece, and ask ourselves the difficult question. Does the official story actually explain what happened? The children were absent from school for an entire week. Not just Friday because of a cough. Not just a day or 2 of illness. 5 consecutive days, April 28th through May 2nd. An entire week where nobody outside that household had any contact with Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Nobody could verify they were alive, healthy, or present in that home. Martel knew Lilly had a cough. Yet he claims he didn't see her that morning. He knew the specific details of what Jack was wearing. Yet he claims he didn't see him that morning. He knew the exact colors of the boots, the dinosaurs on them, the strawberry backpack. He knew these details with a certainty that suggests direct observation, not assumption. Brooks Murray heard the children playing in the next room. She was drifting in and out of sleep. She didn't get up to see them. She didn't verify they were there. She simply heard sounds and drifted back to sleep. And then, when she woke up and realized it was quiet, she immediately knew something was wrong. How much time passed between those 2 moments? That gap, that window of time is crucial. In that space between the last sound and the first moment of panic, something happened. Or perhaps nothing happened. Perhaps that entire narrative of children playing and then slipping out the silent door is simply a story, a framework created to explain something else entirely. 2 boot prints. That's all the physical evidence that placed these children outside the home. 2 small boot prints, 10 feet from the backyard, exactly where the parents would have found them first when they went looking. No other footprints leading into the woods. No trail. No indication that these children ever made it past those initial steps. If you take a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old and put them in a dense Nova Scotia forest, what happens? They either stay close to the edge, scared and confused, or they venture deeper and leave a trail. Broken branches. Disturbed vegetation. Footprints. Evidence of passage. But here, with all the technology available, dogs, drones with infrared, helicopters, trained search and rescue teams, nothing was found. The backpack was never found. The boots were never found. The children themselves were never found. And the search, as extensive as it was, turned up nothing concrete, nothing tangible, nothing that actually supported the theory that these children ventured into the wilderness. Could it be that the children were never in the woods at all? The mother's behavior becomes incomprehensible if we accept the official narrative. If your children are lost in the woods, if they're out there somewhere in the wilderness, if there's a search and rescue operation ongoing with helicopters and dogs and teams combing the forest, why would you leave? Why would you abandon the search to flee the province? There's no rational explanation for this behavior within the framework of the official story. A mother doesn't leave. A mother doesn't flee. A mother stays and searches and fights and pleads and does everything in her power to find her children. Unless she already knows they're not in the woods. Unless she already knows the official story isn't the true story. And then she blocks her partner on social media. She cuts off communication. She separates from him completely. What happened in that instant that broke their relationship so fundamentally that she couldn't bear to be near him? Did they argue about something? Did something occur that morning that caused a rift? Did he know something that she knew, and did that knowledge drive them apart? Martel, left behind, is confused. He doesn't understand why she left. He mutters to reporters, "I don't know why she left." Is this the confused response of an innocent man whose partner made an irrational decision? Or is it the response of someone who knows exactly why she left, someone who knows what she's running from, but who can't or won't say it publicly? The RCMP stood by their conclusion. The children wandered into the woods. No evidence of foul play. And that statement, that particular phrasing, hangs heavy in the air. No evidence of foul play. Not no foul play occurred. Not we've ruled out foul play through our investigation. But no evidence of foul play. Which could mean many things. Which could suggest that whatever happened, whoever might have been responsible, was careful enough not to leave evidence. The questions that remain are the most important questions of all. They're the questions that won't go away no matter how much time passes. No matter what official conclusions are drawn. What happened during that week when the children were absent from school? What was happening in that household? Were the children actually there the entire week, or were they missing for longer than the parents reported? Why did the parents emphasize to everyone that their children would talk to strangers, that they were trusting and open and willing to speak to anyone? Were they establishing an abduction narrative as a cover for something else? Why did neither parent display visible emotion during their interviews? Why was there an absence of the kind of hysteria and anguish you might expect from parents whose children had just vanished? Why did the mother flee the search? Why did she block her partner on social media? What did she know or believe at that moment that caused her to make these decisions? Why did the stepfather speak in past tense about children who hadn't been found? Why did he know such specific details about what the children were wearing if he didn't see them that morning? Why were there only 2 boot prints when a thorough search of the property should have revealed more evidence of the children being present? Why, with all the technology and all the teams and all the resources devoted to this search, was nothing found? No bodies. No clothing. No backpack. No evidence that these children ever ventured into the woods? These are not questions with easy answers. These are not questions that fit neatly into the official narrative. These are questions that suggest something else happened, something that doesn't fit the story we've been told. Lilly Sullivan was 6 years old. Jack Sullivan was 4 years old. They were described by everyone who knew them as sweet, kind, trusting children who would talk to anyone. They had possible autism, though not extreme. They were vulnerable in the way all young children are vulnerable. And then they vanished. The community of Landone Station still holds its breath, wondering what happened in that quiet, wooded place. The authorities maintain their conclusion. The case remains in the background of ongoing investigations. The media has moved on to other stories, other mysteries, other crimes that demand attention. But for those who were there, for those who knew Lilly and Jack, for those who saw the interviews and read the statements and couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong, the mystery remains open. The questions remain unanswered. Where are Lilly and Jack Sullivan? That is the question that defines this case. That is the mystery that drives every other question, every inconsistency, every suspicious detail. 2 children vanished. A family fractured. And the truth, the actual truth about what happened, remains lost. Lost in the woods, perhaps. Or lost in plain sight, hidden beneath layers of incomplete explanations, convenient narratives, and official conclusions that don't hold up under scrutiny. The history of true crime is full of cases where the official story was accepted, where authorities concluded one thing, and for years the truth remained hidden. And then, eventually, details emerge. Witnesses come forward. Evidence resurfaces. And the real story is finally told. Will that happen here? Will we ever know what actually happened to Lilly and Jack? Will the truth eventually surface, or will this remain one of the unsolved mysteries that haunts the collective consciousness, a reminder of how fragile our safety is, how quickly children can disappear, how impossible it can be to know what's happening behind closed doors? These are the questions we're left with. These are the thoughts that linger after the search was called off, after the media moved on, after the case faded from the headlines. If you believe, as so many people online have suggested, that the official story doesn't add up, that something darker happened in that home, then your voice matters. Your attention matters. Your willingness to keep asking questions, to keep demanding answers, to keep pushing for the truth, that matters. Drop a comment right now. Tell us what you think happened. Share your theory. Share your thoughts about the mother's departure, about the stepfather's suspicious knowledge, about the timeline that doesn't fit together. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if this story has moved you the way it's moved thousands of people who can't stop thinking about Lilly and Jack. And if you've watched this entire journey with us, if you've followed every detail and every question and every unsettling implication, then hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Because there are more stories like this, more mysteries that demand our attention, more questions that need to be asked. We cover cases that others overlook, that others move past too quickly. We dig deeper. We ask the hard questions. We refuse to accept incomplete answers. Thank you for following Lilly and Jack Sullivan's story to the end. Thank you for caring about this case, for thinking about this mystery, for refusing to let it simply fade away into silence. That matters. You matter. Share this video. Send it to people who need to hear these questions. Post it on your social media. Because the more people who are aware of this case, the more people who refuse to accept the official narrative without question, the better chance we have of eventually discovering the truth. Lilly and Jack deserve to be remembered. Lilly and Jack deserve justice. Lilly and Jack deserve for us to keep asking questions until we get real answers. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more stories that demand to be heard.